Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of Inlay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari. We have with me Mr. Brian Everaert. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yep, yep.
All right. Brian, we'll get to who you are and the PPC candidate and all that good stuff later. But we were talking about the by-election, and let's pick up where we left off. Trolls. You're getting attacked by the trolls?
Oh yeah. I've noticed, and we were obviously offline having the conversation. We wanted to spin the conversation into this and get going because we were on a pretty good go there. But yeah, there's so many trolls that are out right now. A lot of them are out for the Conservatives, more than I've ever seen since I've been online. I think so. We had the discussion a little earlier about what that means for us and the Conservative Party of Canada. They've got a pretty good ground game. They're pretty innovative on how they try to counter the PPC when we're starting to become more popular. We saw that when they brought out Warren Kinsella in 2019 to try to stain the party. It was more of a mainstream way to go. I think we've evolved as far as campaigning goes into the computer and in all these podcasts and all these different things on X. And you see different platforms being used to promote the parties, and the leaders are on them all the time. So we have trolls that are everywhere. I'm getting attacked 24/7. But the thing is if you go and I like to tell people out there a really good hint that the person is fake or a troll is if you go in and you see who's following them, how many followers they have. Most of the time, the trolls come out and they have like under 100 followers or following, and they might have even signed in to their account a year ago, but it doesn't matter. This is all preset, and I do believe that's what's going on. And then we have our normal um, people out there who are shilling for the CPC. We've got the pleb and Cat Canada, and sometimes Wyatt Claypole. And I'll tell you, I have no I have no respect for those people. And the only reason I'm saying that is because they don't listen to any reason. The trolls have no, and I consider them trolls as well. I don't care how many followers they have. When we're talking about the fact that we have a Conservative Party of Canada leader who supports the Paris Accord, and they can't even have a civil discussion. It's always raw, 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 but there's no substance to what they're saying. And that's what the trolls do online. And if you try to have a civil discussion or ask them for facts, or, we don't even have a platform from the Conservative Party because they flip flop on what they support. We witnessed that this week actually with the Canada First garbage really coming out of Pierre Poilievre in their camp. And I think the trolls are nuts. That's basically what it is, but it's a good sign. And we need to take it that way. The more they try to push back on the PPC, obviously, the more popular and threatening to them we've become. And I think that we're in full max troll going on right now against us, which is a good sign.
Yeah, it's like Canada's turned into a troll-based economy.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
oh yeah.
Prairie, I see you. Good morning to you as well. Um, Prairie says sometimes the trolls they make a new account when too many people are onto them. They come up with a new one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oftentimes I ask a troll too. I point out that they're getting paid. I call them out, and I'll say, well, it looks to me like you're a paid troll. Oftentimes when you do that, they disappear. That's what I found, and it's easy to spot them. Totally negative. They have no rhyme or reason. Most of the time, they'll parrot some lie about our leader or whatever, like the big mansion in Florida or whatever they might try to do, and it's all about trying to switch and sway public perception, or digging up old negativities about the PPC that were lies from the past. And that's what they like to do. They like to try to bring up the old stuff they thought worked that stained us in the past. But right now, they're having a harder time because we've proven our worth, and we have in the Canadian. We're doing it right now. We're doing it. We like you say, Max is on his way out, flying into the by-election to represent, to show that our leader is 100% behind everybody in this party right now. And I can tell just by all the new faces, we have people who have been loyal to the party in the back, in the scenes in the back, that have been supporting us, voting for us since 2019, but they're coming out now. They're becoming candidates. They're super vocal, and they're very educated on what the PPC stands for. And I'm going to tell you something. in this past year, I would say, I feel so good about our support because I'm watching the people who are coming with us now. They're joining in with the PPC. They're signing up, becoming candidates, but they know everything about us. They're like before when we first were in trying to educate people about what we do, trying to show people what the PPC is all about. It's like climbing a mountain that they can't even see the peak on. And there's certain people in our party that have stayed at it and at it and at it and continued after they've been beat down, people totally against them, trying to discourage them. There's a whole lot of founding members and candidates that have stuck the course and kept on the message. And I see it now. We're starting to, it's paying dividends because the people that are coming on board, they know about the PPC. They know what we stand for. And we have quality people coming in and a lot of young people. And it's working. Like I know I started right from 2018 and 19 when the party was founded. I've been in 2 federal elections. I got out there. I got 2.8% in the first one, but I got 11.2% in the last election.
Wow.
And I worked beyond belief to get here. But I'm going to tell you something. I feel it. I feel a lot better even coming into this year, into an election year, because I can see how hard everyone's working. Everyone's on message. We've proven that we're not what the Warren Kinsella Project Cactus media has tried to paint us as. And the beauty of it all is we were right in 2019. Everything that we brought forward as a party and our leader, Maxime Bernier, brought forward with the billboards, stop mass immigration, it was the big taboo back then. And now you're seeing we are a forward um, looking party. We are not reactive. And the Canadian public is looking for that right now. They don't want somebody who's going to bail the boat when there's a hole in it. They want people who are going to maintain the boat. They want people who are going to make sure there's no hole gets in the boat. That's what the People's Party's about. I think we have thought into what we do, and the beauty of it is our platform will stand the test of time, and we have the courage and the how can I say responsibility and the character to put it one out there that we don't keep on manipulating and changing. People's Party is absolutely the best federal party in this country. Platform, people, and leader. Bernier is Pierre Poilievre can't carry his water, as far as I'm concerned. You got a guy with 19 years experience in the private sector, mostly in the economy. And then you got a guy who worked at a call center for TELUS collecting bills. You can't compare Pierre Poilievre and Maxime Bernier. There is no comparison. And I
You know
watched
what's
the
funny?
fight.
Pierre Poilievre is a career politician, and
Mm-hmm.
I hate having to do this to come to the defense of the NDP, but he got his pension secured years ago. He's like a uber professional politician, and they're trashing the NDP because Jagmeet doesn't have his pension. I don't like Jagmeet Singh, but there's something wrong with that argument there. You got a guy that's got a gold plated pension and another guy that doesn't, and you're hitting the guy that doesn't.
Exactly. And you know what? I spoke to that last night as well. Same thing goes for every MP. And I feel the same way. Don't get me wrong. The role of Jagmeet is he tries to play off the working man with the Rolex on, and they got this thing with him getting in the Maserati. And to me, that's garbage. I look at his policies. I don't like them. I don't like what the guy stands for. I think he has allowed that party to go way too far to the left in the woke agenda. And the blue and pink hair people is what I call them. They don't like that. I don't care. The fact of the matter is he's abandoned the working men and women of the country. And you can look at the unions, the government unions, like you look at QP and all these other unions. The thing is so a lot of those union heads are out of their mind. As far as I'm concerned, I watch. They're not about work. They're not about anything like that. They're about these agendas like transgender and LGBT stuff. But anyways, Bob, I'm a little off topic, but you're right. Every MP that's out there, that my MP here in Sarnia, Lambton, Bkejwanong, she's a play it safe MP. She sits back and does this. She's riding the blue wave. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't take any risk. And it's the same thing. The reason why they don't come out and speak publicly and say anything, a lot of these politicians is for the same reason Jagmeet Singh doesn't want to pull the trigger on Trudeau, because they want their golden parachute. They want their wage and they want their pension, and they can put anything they want on Jagmeet Singh. As far as I'm concerned, it's funny you mention it, because it's that perception is starting to come out as well. And I think it's a huge mistake for them to continue to go after him for that. Now, that being said, he's doing it. But the fact is it's like, look in the mirror, folks. Every one of our politicians, I often say this, who do you hear speak? Who from the Conservatives or Liberals, besides a couple familiar faces, do you ever see out public like we are today, that are willing to come out unscripted, sit down, talk politics, talk the critical issues, and actually be allowed to do it? And that's the thing. Our politicians are like puppets on strings in this country. Like I'll give you an example. Marilyn Gladu, the one here in Sarnia, she's a Conservative. Rarely do we see her public, but when we do, we're a refinery town here. Sarnia's got a whole bunch of refineries, chemical plants. We have the Chemical Valley here. We're a gas and oil city in southwestern Ontario. We are. This riding is big time gas and oil chemical plants. She goes out and does an environmental rally to end fossil fuels. Like, this is because of the Paris Accord. So she's trying to play on that center of the fence where everybody, she wants to be all this pro-environmental stuff, but she doesn't realize that you can axe the tax all you want. Axe this carbon tax, and I hear it here. And axing the carbon tax does nothing if you're with the Paris Accord, because what you do with the Paris Accord is you follow the targets, the carbon targets through the UN. You put a stranglehold on these businesses and corporations at the top. They pass the expense down to us. There goes your carbon tax cut, with higher prices for stuff that they're putting out, or they pack their bags and they leave and they go talk to Mr. Trump. And that's what we're facing with this Conservative Party. They're not conservative. They are fake conservative. They are, if you look at their policies, I compared them to Kamala Harris policies. Pro-jet transgender on kids, pro-Paris Accord, pro-mass immigration. You could take the Conservative Party of Canada's policies right now, put them up against Donald Trump, and you might as well have Kamala Harris at the helm. That's what I see. We have a totally fake Conservative Party in Canada, and we point it out. And that's why I think time's on our side. That's something that our leader always says to me, Brian, time is on our side. And I agree with them.
Prairie agrees with you as well. There's a perception out there that the Conservative Party might have peaked a little bit too early, so they rode this wave of hatred after what happened with the Emergencies Act. Pierre Poilievre got a first round mandate. He becomes leader, and then they kind of flip flopped on their messaging, and now they're talking about how it's a carbon tax election. I don't think that's a good idea, because there's a whole bunch of other taxes that people would care about more. There's a whole bunch of other issues like immigration.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is take a look at your income tax. Like, take a look around at people are hurting. And here's the problem that I think Pierre Poilievre has, is he has been able to avoid being exposed because of the terrible performance of Justin Trudeau. We all know that. Trudeau is an absolute disaster, but we knew that. And people should understand that. They need to look at who they're picking. You've got a kind of a trust fund young man who's thrust into the spotlight in Canada on his father's coattails. And you could tell right away when I was watching him back and when he first was going to be elected, he talked about the budget balancing itself. So this is where I think that was a mistake that he made. But that's bad prep of a leader. And this is what we're starting to see. You're starting to see with the Conservatives, and you're right, because they did peak early. They tried to ride the wave of dissent from the Canada, for better terms, the first people that were out at the protests for the COVID-19 stuff. And here's the thing, we were the ones who were out there. So they can claim it's their claim to fame. But when you watch what they're doing, people have had it. Like, it looked like to them like it was a good idea to back the Ukraine war, but that is a mess. That is something that is not even close to being able to be solved the way that they want to do it. It's almost like they're trying to poke the bear and literally, for the Third World War. And when we're putting Canadian money into that, and this is what I've said, we don't have the money to be putting in to anything foreign aid, as far as I'm concerned. But you look at the Conservative Party, rah, 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 over this Ukraine war. They're trying to backpedal a bit. They're being quiet on it, but it's too late. They've asked for more money to be put, even up on the front lines. They sided with Trudeau, and this is the problem: is people are starting to see it. All the important issues, Poilievre and Trudeau are lockstep on. And sometimes I get Conservatives, they roll their eyes, they say, "What are you talking about?" But if you actually sit down and you take a look, when it comes to the social issues, when it comes to a touchy subject for some, not for me, I don't care, we live in it. When it comes to abortion, when it comes to taxation, when it comes to sending money overseas for war, when it comes to the green agenda, the UN 2030 agenda with the 17 sustainable development goals. You got a guy in Poilievre who can actually stand and think that the public isn't going to watch him when Mark Friesen asked him, what about the sustainable development goals? And he says, well, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. Well, if you're a conservative supporter and you know that he did that and you still support that man, you're tearing your own country down. Your future, you are tearing it down. And a lot of people in the Conservative Party are like, well, that's not true. And I said, well, no, the leader of the party supports gender selective abortion. The Conservative Party I know would never do that. A leader. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But here's the thing: he had a chance to vote against that barbaric practice of his own member, and he didn't do it. That being said, wherever you want to be on that issue, that's a personal thing. And don't get me wrong, but let's talk truths. Let's say he's for the Paris Accord, and that's what's coming back to haunt him: his record. Hey, big surprise. He's got too far to go to get to the end before he gets exposed. And that's why, like I say, Max says, Brian, time is on our side. And I agree with that. But the problem I have right now is, as long as the Canadian public, when they watch him trying to flip into a PPCer, that they realize that he's lying. And that is where we need to, as PPC candidates and promoters of the party, I think that's where we need to get to. We need to make sure that the voters in our ridings and the voters in the country understand that the guy has lied about everything, and he continues to do it. And I believe he's going to run out of time. I can't tell you that he's going to collapse in on himself, but I can tell you that he's got some explaining to do. And we haven't gotten down to the nitty gritty yet. And we can't wait till the federal election to expose it. I think right now we have to have our foot on the gas pedal right to the floor. And we can't stop. We can't let off. We can't dwell on small mistakes. We got to try to not make any. But let's face it, our party has grassroots working class men and women in it. That is what our populist People's Party is. Nobody's perfect, but we all have the same goal in mind. And what I like the best about us being able to go after the Conservatives is we don't expect each other to be the same. And that's what I like the most about the People's Party, is where you may be going on an attack, let's say, on a political opponent. I would never even understand that angle, because we're so diverse in our candidates and our people that we do it right. We accept each other's differences, but we're united in one goal, and that is a strong and free Canada. And that's how I think. I think you're right. I think the Conservative Party's peaking too soon, but the media's on their side. They want to crown that king, and we've got, like I say, we're climbing up the mountain, and we need to continue to keep on moving up. But I think it's going to be a pleasant surprise, to be honest with you, in the next federal election. As long as we keep doing the things we're doing, and Max keeps getting out there, we get good candidates like yourself and Ian and people across the country. Like, look at you guys are way out there on the West Coast. Here I am in southwestern Ontario. And we're across the country, and the message is the same. And like I say, I'm pretty confident.
Well, look at this. You have a fan. Love Brian, another great representation of the People's Party of Canada. Thank you, Prairie.
Right on. Thanks, Prairie. And I got to tell you, once that You know how sometimes once you see it, you can't unsee it? That's what I find with the People's Party supporters. Sometimes it takes a lot to get them to change what they're about or what they think, because let's face it, in this country, you're inundated with fake news. You're told what you should vote. You're told, you look at the polls. Well, people don't realize sometimes those polls, we're not even included in them. So when somebody answers PPC and we end up with 2%, it's because we were never in the questions. And this is what happens. Like, the Canadian public has no idea how dirty and the media and the effort is to keep us out from sitting in those 338 seats. And that's what it's about. And the other parties are the uni party. They're united. They love it. They ride it in opposition. Oh, we don't care. Like we were talking about the pensions earlier and the money. They don't care. In fact, it's a benefit to the opposition party to let the thing fall, because then it gets turned, it's worse, so that they can get in and screw it up even more. And this is what I think we've been watching. We don't have opposition. How do we end up with the country in the shambles it's in? You end up that way when your opposition is told to be quiet, sit down, a group of people in a back room control the narrative, and it's all about power. It's not about making sure the country is kept. And we see it. Like, we got a leader in the Conservative Party who won't even go and sign an NDA and read who the traitors are in his own party. And this guy wants to lead this country. And I listened to the reasoning behind it, and it's pathetic. Well, I can't talk about it if I go and look who's sitting beside me in my meetings who's a traitor. So I'm going to let all these traitors in my party, obviously. Now I'm hearing there's 40. Is there? We don't know. So this guy, Pierre Poilievre, no, I can't read it or I won't be able to talk about it. But then we had, was it, I forget the guy's name, Simon or Simmons, or I forget, it was a reporter. He released a story that 4 names, 3 liberals and 1 conservative. Victor O. Victor O was the senator from 2013 appointed by Stephen Harper. He was accused of being one of the names in the report. Not a peep from Pierre. Pierre doesn't have, his lips aren't sealed. He hasn't signed a non-disclosure agreement. But if you notice, no questions about relationship with Victor O and Poilievre from the media. Harper appointed Victor O. Harper's endorsed Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre's been in there since 2004, obviously for Victor O's the whole time he's been a senator. So why aren't our media asking the question, what was Pierre Poilievre's relationship with Victor O? Victor O's been pointed out as one of the people in the report. This is what we're watching. We're watching a group of politicians in this country who are as dirty as they can be, that are leaning on each other, even though they're supposed to be against each other and competing to protect themselves for screwing us over in this country. And we watched it. Simple. There was a Nazi in our House of Commons. The whole bunch of them stood up and gave a standing ovation to an SS soldier in our House of Commons. And what happened? What a moment for Poilievre. Why wouldn't he have told his folks, stay sitting? Don't get up and clap. He could have stood up and said, Mr. Speaker, this is a disgrace. The Prime Minister has brought a Nazi into the House. You really want to get rid of Trudeau? He had the chance right then and there, but he didn't do it. Instead, he shook Zelensky's hand that day and clapped like this. And all of the trained SEALs behind him, they were clapping too. And you want to know what? They're all guilty. Guess what happens? Speaker, oh, it's me. I'll take the blame. Let me fall on my sword. It's exactly what happened. Every one of those parties was guilty. They had no escape. So the speaker, oh, yep, I brought him in. I'll be the one to take the fall. That's what happened. The same thing's going on with the foreign interference. They are dirty up to their necks right there. Not one of them wants to come clean. We got a whole group of gutless MPs that will keep their mouth shut, and they're being told to, and we don't get to see it. Like, why would we have because it's all secret stuff, right? It's supposed to be sensitive information. But how can people even allow a guy who wants to lead our country to say to the rest of us, listen, I don't need to know who the spies and who the traitors are among my party. Like, what about the meetings Poilievre's in? Think, people. He's sitting in meetings with sensitive information. The guy knows he's got spies or traitors in his meetings. He's just letting them hear everything. The government's business. Why wouldn't he take Lanceman and say, you know what? Here's my deputy leader. I'm going to let her handle this file. If any speaking needs to happen on it, I'm going to let her handle it. Like, he's not the only one that can speak. I think he's in it. That's my own opinion. I think the leadership run that he had was interfered with by some people and players from India. I think Poilievre's name is in that report, possibly a prime minister as well from the past. And he doesn't want his name coming up because if he reads his own name, he can't stand there and stay there, right? So for me, there's a lot deeper trench in our government and corruption than people even know about. And that's why it's our responsibility to make sure people understand we need to make a change. And we need to sweep the house clean. This house is dirty. 338, sweep them out, and let's move on with the policies of the People's Party. That's what I say.
Going back to Ukraine and COVID, like Pierre Poilievre, not only did he align with Trudeau, he tried to one up him. He's like, we have to send money to Ukraine, more money to Ukraine, more vaccines faster. And I
Yeah.
remember at the time I thought, well, no matter what this guy does, he's Teflon. Like the people are just enamored with him and they'll never turn on him. But they're starting to wake up and turn on him. Like they are hemorrhaging or at least shedding support.
I agree. He can't hide forever. And you're right. He did. He stood up and said, we're going to back the Ukraine. We want more money to the front. That's what he wanted to send more equipment, following Trudeau's lead. And COVID, I can remember I was so mad to watch because I took the time. I was in Ottawa. In fact, I was with Randy and Max when Randy Hillier got charged for going up when we went up to the Parliament. I was with it was Torma, myself, Randy. I think there was a few other people there, but they wouldn't let us up the hill. But that's the truth. There was no Conservative MPs besides one. I think there was one. I got sent a video. I've always ran my mouth that none of them were there, and somebody proved me wrong the other day. Leslyn Lewis was up on the hill there the one day. I seen a video, so I'll give her that. I try to keep the facts straight, and I'm a straight shooter. But the rest of those MPs, including Poilievre, he went down there for a photo op against the fence one day, and he tried to make it look like he was out there supporting the people in the streets on Wellington. There was no other Conservative or any other politicians that were down on those streets, federal politicians, no MPs. I was there. I looked. I watched. I waited to hear from them to take some lead. And the only one I saw up on the boom truck was Bernier. And 100% correct. He stood in the House and told Trudeau that I think I can't give you the exact date, but he told Trudeau that it was, we're not getting vaccines fast enough. How come other countries have these vaccines and Canadians don't? Oftentimes you'll see that video played online. People put it up to show and remind people they weren't out to defend us. They had their own people that didn't want to get those shots. They didn't stand up for their own MPs that wanted to go in and be involved in Parliament, but they weren't allowed to. So, excuse me, you can take it any way you want it. And this is the problem that I have. The Teflon thing you're talking about. You're right. There are so many things that he's done that are forever. I would say them and people would say, Brian, you're nuts. He never did that. Brian, that's not true. I could say, no, he's for the Paris Accord. He lied directly. Mark Friesen said to him, do you know about sustainable development? He said he hadn't read it. And people go, that's not true. So I can agree with you. I think you're right. Like, he has been Teflon, very frustrating in an opposition position. And we are the only opposition party in the country right now, right? The rest of them are all on the same page. We might not have seats, but man, take a look how far we've moved that Overton window over the last year. It is insane. The amount of influence the PPC has had on Canadian politics from outside the House is absolutely astronomical. Could you imagine if we got seats and we were able to apply our platform and policies and positions in that system? Like, we've been so good, and Teflon needs to go. I think that's a broad wish. But I'll tell you what, and I've been saying this, purple and blue government is a good thing. And it is, because I don't care about the conservatives. They've been there forever. They're not going anywhere. It's red, blue, red, blue, red, blue in this country, and it always is. Had the reform shoved in there for a while, but it's time, right? So if we have a purple blue government, we're in a driver's seat, because that way we have a watchdog in the House of Commons. And the Canadian public have to understand, like I said, blue, red, and orange right now, no matter what the rhetoric is, the policy that counts, they're in line. So we do not want to have Trudeau's party, the Liberals, the NDP in opposition, because if we have them, the Paris Accord, who's going to speak out against that? The fact that C4 throwing a parent in jail because they're trying to coach their minor child on their sexuality. Who's going to speak up against that? Those are not Canadian values in my Canada. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the people that are on the left, whether they do it in protest, whether they do it because they come around the bend for the PPC, realize we have the best policies. I don't want red and orange in the House. I want to see a purple, obviously, government. But if we have a blue and purple government, we will get back on track. Another issue that with the Teflon statement you were making is Pierre Poilievre is terrified of Donald Trump. People can say whatever they want. I watch the Maple Mega people and, oh, look, let's put Pierre over here. Look at the new Trump for Canada. Are you kidding me? Pierre Poilievre, like I said, is more like Kamala Harris. So if you're Donald Trump and you've pulled your country out of the Paris Accord when he won the first election, and now he's won again, and the first thing he's going to do is pull him out of the Paris Accord again, and you're Pierre Poilievre, what are you going to do? March in his office? No, I'm for it. I'm for the Paris Accord. And Donald Trump's going to say, well, hey, that's really good, you dummy. Look at all the natural resources you have, and you're not going to capitalize on what keeps your social programs up. All that money in the natural resource sector, you're going to stranglehold it. That's what I mean. Poilievre has his bed made. He's got the hole dug. He's just got to get in it. And he is working his way to crawl into that hole because of what he's done in the past. With Donald, like I said, he doesn't want to go see Donald Trump. Donald Trump will expose him. And here's the thing, even with Elon Musk, Donald Trump has Elon Musk with him. Great. It's awesome to watch. It's absolutely fantastic when I watch it, that you couldn't even dream it up what's going on in politics in the States right now. But here's the thing, Elon Musk's ex-wife took his son and had his son transition. That's part of the Donald Trump group. Poilievre voted for C4. What does he possibly have to talk about with Donald Trump if he's the prime minister? That he's like Justin Trudeau? So these people that think, oh, look at, Poilievre and Trump. Bernier and Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Poilievre and Trump?
if I can jump in, so Donald Trump, some of his cabinet picks are amazing. Like Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security. Kash Patel just got announced for the FBI. Obviously, RFK Jr. for HHS.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard. So he's got these hardcore, I mean, I would call them either Christian or family values. And then Pierre Poilievre, his right-hand man, is Melissa Lantsman. And as you mentioned, C4. So I don't, why do they just change the name? I mean, if you support those values, fine, change it to the LGBTQ party or the Progressive Party, the Left Party. Just change the name, please, for the love of God.
Oh yeah, they don't want to admit it, and that's part of the issue that I have as well with the people that are supporting them. That's the Teflon thing. If you really dig deep into the conservatives, are they conservative? No, they're not. They're another liberal party that paints their policy in a different light, but the end game is the same. And some people say, oh, it's just going to get us there slower. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to get us there slower. I think it's going to get us there. And that's what I'm looking at. You cannot take it and put lipstick on the pig. You need to make sure that you identify where you're going. And that's the thing, proactive government. If you don't have it, you fail, because you cannot run by the skin of your rear end when things go wrong. You need to be proactive, not reactive. We've been watching, look at inflation. Now they're starting to throw checks around, right? And it's true. The Conservative Party, you have Lanceman, like you say, sharing um, the transgender flag on her social media. And here's the thing: I often say to the people in that group, the LGBTQ whatever alphabet thing, number thing, there are some people in there that need to distance themselves from the madness. And let's face it, um, we have people that are being included in a group that have a mental illness. In my opinion, hey, I can have my opinion, but they expect you and I to follow it and play pretend, and they get all mad and, oh, well, you didn't use my pronoun. I don't care about your pronouns. I don't care anything to do. And I love the ad. It's like they're for they, them, we're for you. That ad in the States was a genius ad that Trump put out, and it's the truth. And I think that, accepting and caring and being a decent human being is one thing. Consequence for action and knowing when to say this is wrong is another. And what we're watching is no consequence for action. We have allowed these politicians to bring in this woke agenda. We were told to be quiet or else you're going to get canceled. Well, I like to say this. I used to work, I'll give you an example. I used to work at a carbon black plant here in Sarnia, and it's Cabot. They create carbon black. You can't go in there without getting totally covered in this black dust. And I mean totally covered. You might as well just jump in and get covered in it, because you're wasting your time trying to stay clean in that plant.
You
And
still
it's the
wear your
same.
mask though, right?
Oh yeah, we're all masked up and everything. Yeah, of course, we're protecting our health, and they have great safety regulations. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's in there doing what they're supposed to protect the workers. But here's the thing: is it's just like the cancel culture. They tried to cancel me 6 years ago. They canceled me. I'm running around canceled right now. I'm cool with it, because these politicians, like the Conservatives, spend so much time to try not to be canceled. Just get canceled. If you're going to be a conservative-minded politician in Canada, jump in, put your feet in the water. Don't stick your toe in. Don't try to, oh, I'm about this and not about that. You might as well just get yourself canceled, because if you don't, you're going to get chewed up. And that's what I've seen. Everybody's spending so much time trying to tiptoe around the stuff that are some of the main issues that they don't come across. They're weak. I think that I'm okay with myself and the way that what I believe, and I'm good with that. And I think I'm in line with a lot of Canadians and if you're going to be a politician or an elected representative, that's where you have to use your mouth to say the stuff that maybe in society people aren't able to do. And I think that we need, as politicians, need to understand that it's about taking chance. It's about doing what's right. It's not about trying to make it where you don't have to wear it, where you can avoid the rough run. You got to go into the fight. If you try to go around the fight, you're never going to get to the end, because you're just going to get stomped out. That's what we need to do, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the woke stuff, the LGBT stuff, the transgender stuff. Listen, people can do whatever they want. They're 18 years old. Hey, have at her. You want to go in the privacy of your own house? I don't care what you do, if you're in a club, whatever. But the thing is they're dragging the kids in. And when you see this bill like C4, where they tried to disguise it as these radical Christians are trying to ungay people, and that's the truth. That's what the bill was put in there for, was cloaked in this religious groups, Christians, trying to make sure people aren't gay or make them ungay. That's what the bill was originally about. And then you take a look at the way they worded it, and it's insane. If a kid comes home from school and their teacher, big surprise, tells them, you could be a little girl if you want. You can do this and be a girl, and then you're a father at home or a mother, and you're like, hold on here. You're not becoming a little girl. That's impossible, number one. Number two, that's not who you are, and we're not putting up with that. You're gonna we'll talk about it, but you're a boy. That kid goes back to school, tells the teacher, we have a law in this country that can get them arrested. That is beyond, and it's so outrageous that the supporters of the Conservatives deny it. They will not talk about it. Like I often say to these internet folks, the pleb, Cat Canada, tell us. Let's hear about what your support is for this stuff. Nope, silence. No, we can't talk about that. No, we won't say anything about what the downfalls of the party are. And that's the liberalitis, I call it, of the Conservatives. Because that's why the Liberals suck so much. Because they're so arrogant and pompous that they think they're the only brain in the room. And this is why the country's in so much trouble, is because we got a group of people who are elitists in their own mind. They never ever took a suggestion from the peasants, let's call them, below, and the people. And I've learned that, even in my job, I'm an iron worker, right? Sometimes we have a first year apprentice that's in there. We've been doing something I've been in for almost 30 years. That kid comes in and makes a suggestion. You don't just pass the suggestion away. You have to look at what the kid says and pay attention. And sometimes we get a first year apprentice that comes up with an idea that hasn't been in our toolbox for my whole career. And we use it and it works. And that's the problem. The Liberals are like that. They're the biggest brain in the room. We are the ones who are going to say, and you guys are this and that. We're not listening to any of your ideas. Well, last time I checked, I think the country is represented by a whole bunch of different political stripes. And I think that it's a mistake for a political party to shut out. Like, I'll tell you right now, there's some things I've heard in my life in the past from every political party that I agree with. And if you're going to be a good member of parliament, if you're going to be someone who wants to represent Canadians, you get elected on your judgment, I would say, or your brand right now in this country. But I would hope on your judgment and how well you're going to represent your constituent. But you got to have an open mind too. You can't just be hardline on your ideas and say, we're right. Policy ideas for the PPC, yeah, we need to follow them. But there's a whole bunch of things that need to go down that might not be in the conservative spectrum of things. There are. And it's just to make sure that everybody in the country has a way to speak up, because I don't think it's like that in this country right now. I think there's a lot of people who are being demonized, silenced. We can't do that. And that's one of the things that, I won't say I've struggled with, but I've had to mature. I never thought the same way in my 30s as I do when I'm 50. You know what I mean? So things change your perspective, like, and what you think about things. I think it's about patience and making sure there's good things that need to happen in the country. They don't always come out of the same tent, but you got to be careful, because sometimes you get a party or you get a group of people who think like the Liberals. We know what's best, and they don't care. And when they get to that point, everybody's got their hand out, and it's all their buddies. We're seeing it. The two Randys. Like, how does that continue? How does that get to go on and on and on, and nobody says anything? And there's where we're at.
Let's go for the audience had a question. Oh, maybe you can answer this. Prairie is asking if there was a conservative MP that got let go for he wouldn't get the jab. The only one I can think of is Roman Bobber, the provincial MPP.
Yeah, well, Randy Hillier, he kind of had the same thing going. I think I hate to say it, but I think there was one Kathy Wagontail. I don't think they got let go. I think that they were against doing it. Um, I don't think anybody got run because they went to the computer generated meetings. So I think that I can't off by the top of my head no one that got removed. But I do think that the Conservatives had MPs that didn't want to get them. And but that's the thing. Who are they? How is it that we don't have their names out on the marquee lights? Because they're not allowed to. And this is what part of what the problem is with that party. But I think the same one that put the gender selective abortion bill out, private members bill. I believe she's from Saskatchewan. Kathy Wagentel is her name. I think she was against them, and I think she was fairly vocal and sat out of Parliament. Don't quote me on it. I could be wrong, but thinking back, I think there was one, and I imagine there was more. It's funny you talk about Roman Baber. He was down here in Sarnia, Lambton. I got invited to a get together with about 8 people, and he was invited down here to a restaurant we were in called the Leaky Tank. Well, the Leaky Tank, Sherry was very outspoken during COVID. She kept her restaurant open the whole time. They went after her like mad, and it was a rallying meeting point for people who were uh, for freedom. And they ended up getting her restaurant in the end by her insurance company canceling her out. They wouldn't do it, but I got to sit in. We had a good conversation, Roman and myself, and he got upset with me. He can't stand that I'm talking about this, by the way. I guarantee this is ticking him off, but I don't care. He got upset with me when I said, "Well, did you get the shots?" And he said, "I had to." And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I couldn't go in. I couldn't." And I said, "Okay, Roman. Well, you can fight all you want, but if you're gonna and don't get me wrong, I'm glad he brought stuff out. Like he did not a bad job, but he now you see his motive. Now he's with Pierre now. Well, Pierre didn't do anything about the shots. You know what I mean? He begged for more. And now he's kissing the ring of that guy. So I look at that and, I think he kind of put the fire out that he lit by going and joining in with Polyev. I think that he's got other motives about being a career politician himself. That's just my opinion on it, but that's what I think about Roman right now.
Yeah, like him. People who got the jab to keep their jobs, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they have kids. I don't know. Maybe they need the money. But where Roman Bobber, I gave him the full $1,725 donation. Where I saw that I kind of wasted my money was when he was on the Ezra Levant show, and Ezra asked him, he's like, "Do you think immigration is too high?" And he wouldn't answer the question. He's like, "I think immigrants, we should respect them, and they're great people." And he's like, "Yeah, but the number's really high." He's like, "This country was built by immigrants. We need immigrants." And I'm like, "They got to you, didn't they?"
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the thing, right? That's the do nothing politician. That's the play it safe politician that is so scared of their own values that they won't speak them publicly. And it's tiring. Like it is. We have so many of them right now. Um, that, and I believe we have good people. I'll tell you right now. You can't tell me, nobody can, that every single member of parliament we have in there, um, that we don't have good people. And I get that too. Oh, those dirty rats and this and that. But the problem is they cancel themselves out for me the same way you just mentioned about Roman. Have some guts then. Do what's right. Like the same, like you mentioned about the jobs. And yeah, people had their homes up on the block. People had their kids. And I feel the exact same way as you do about that. Um, but shame on them people who were in charge that put those people in that position where they not only had to go against what they wanted in their moral compass is to make sure their family was fed, but then they got to face the wolves on the other side, and they got to face the people who were so far against the shots, which I was 100%, that they attacked those very same people that were put in a bad position by our politicians. And those people took it on both sides of the face. They got slapped by the government, and in order to keep their family together and save what they've worked for, they got slapped on the other side by the freedom people who were saying, "Well, what the hell are you doing? Do a little bit of sacrifice." But the thing is family, and when you have a family and young kids, it's everything, right? So I agree with you 100%. I don't hold that against anybody. Now, that means that those people have a chance now to stand up. Those people that got taken advantage of and got put in that position, they need to understand, I believe, that now's the time where they have the power. They can stand up and fix it.
Uh, I was glancing at the messages. We need peace, good governance, and the legislature can F off with their orders.
Well, you know what? I do agree with that. Less government is better government, and less red tape, and we're about that, right? Minimizing um, too big of a big fat federal government, like Bernier always says, and he's right. Like we have too much government involved in our lives. Take a look just with the immigration stuff. It is so out of control right now. It's scary to even think about. it causes people anxiety right now to think about it, because it's been let go so far that, and I get it. For Canadians, they've always taught Canadians, and I think most people, religion and politics, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. But I think that's a mistake. And I think religion and politics, I think we need to go there, because take a look what the problems are right now going on in Canada, right? It's got to do with people using religion and fighting. We've got the Gaza stuff going on, and the Israeli stuff going on. We've got the political realm of corruption. So we need to figure something out, and those subjects are massive. There is no quick solution to those subjects, but what we can do is we can say, you know what, we need to live in harmony as Canadians, and we need to understand about being accepting. Some things we don't accept. We don't accept flags of our Canadian flag on fire on our government steps in our buildings. But hey, you know what? Free speech, we accept it. So there's a fine line. We're seeing it right now, and I don't know. Um, it's a firestorm that a proactive government never would have had. Never would have had. This is a prime example of our opposition not speaking up, not standing up and saying, whoa, wait a minute here, 2 million people, stop. What are you doing? That's all they had to do. Instead, they didn't. They just sat there. Polyev got dressed up and did his thing. If you can't beat him, join him. He's down there talking in other foreign languages. He's dancing around. And I remember when Trudeau went to India, he was the big embarrassment of the country when he did his dance and was dressed in the garb. Remember, everybody made fun of him. Even the CPC was on, or CBC was on him, which was amazing. But there you go. We've got the conservative guy doing the same thing. And then just a week, not even that, 2-3 days ago, oh, wait a minute, I'm not doing that anymore. Come on. This is the thing. The country's in big trouble. And it does have to do with politics and religion. I look at it, what a mess. Israel's bombing the hell out of Gaza, and those people need a place to go. And where do they end up? In Canada. A lot of them, some of them, like this is the cycle, and then they get here and they're mad as hell at people who have done it to them. So what are
It's
you going
like
to do?
it's a refugee mill. Like
You
you
got it.
support these wars, and then they end up here, and they're like, and the government's like, well, we caused this refugee crisis. Like, no, Justin, you caused it. Put them up in your
Right.
house.
We need to take them, like I said, and I don't mean anything light, but from what was it, from the river to the sea, and then here to you and me. That's what I'm saying. We need to stop this carnage, whether or not I don't take the sides, and people say, oh, you got to take a side. No, I don't, because it's about Canada. It's crazy. Be a human being. Think about some compassion. Understand that there's a 8-year-old and 2-year-old kid in the bottom of a pile of rubble. And when are you going to say enough's enough about the violence? When are we going to say, stop sending rockets in? Stop doing that. It's like both sides of that. It just drives me crazy. It's their fault. It's their fault. No, it's both your faults. Stop. The world's watching. Just stop. And it's got to do with religion and politics. And it's crazy. And we need cooler heads to prevail there. Very, very a deep subject, and it's been going on for a long time. And I don't think it's going to get solved here today. But at the same time, I think when you go back to passion and have compassion for people and lives, that's where you win. That's where the argument is pretty clear. Enough's enough. Like even in Ukraine, that's enough. Like these destabilizing our world because you don't honor an agreement to keep Ukraine out of NATO, and you're going to just shake the whole world, shake the knees of the world, get everybody all up in the arms, and then turn around and demonize uh, somebody who probably wouldn't be saying anything if you would have just honored your agreement and stayed off his border. And there's this raw, like the Ukraine stuff, super scary, because it's like we've got these warmonger neocon hawks, and it's got to do with the military and the big business behind it. And they're firing up those factories and machine because of inflation and the downturn in the economy. They know how to do it. War brings money. War will make you wealthy, but what it does is it kills people and it kills our soul. And people need to stop it. And in a conservative party in this country that has been warmongering with Trudeau on the Ukraine war, that is one of the scariest things that I see coming from a Poilievre administration in Canada, is the fact that he doesn't have enough sense to take the opposing side. It doesn't mean you have to agree with Putin, but you have to look at the big picture. You have to understand that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to destabilizing the world. And somebody needs to say it. Prime example, Jean Chrétien told the States, we're not going in Iraq. Best thing he could have ever done. Jean Chrétien drove me nuts in there for a long time. But guess what? When he said we're not going into Iraq, he was right. And he made the right call for Canada. I believe that. That's my own, because it turned into this great big mess and just carnage and death on people, and it didn't have to happen. I thought a lot of that was on made up BS, and we're seeing it right now. The demonizing of Putin. I don't like Putin. I think Putin has done some things in the past because of his association and his KGB background and all that stuff. But there's a hell of a lot of propaganda around a guy who just wants to be left alone. Like when I watch what he's done, he could have wiped Ukraine out in a weekend easily. He hasn't done that. And these people that are being sucked into this, they're low info when it comes to what's actually going on over there. I mean, look at the pipeline gets destroyed. Putin wrecked his own pipeline. Like, who's thinking that? You can shut the tap off. You don't have to wreck your pipeline, and then you don't get any truth. So I think there's a lot of lies being told. I think we're in a scary spot. And I hope to God that Trump gets in there and does what he said he was going to do. And I don't think he's the be all end all of everything, but I do think that I think cooler heads are going to prevail, and I think that he is there for a reason, and I'm hoping that he stops that. But that's the biggest fear I have right now is we have a leader in the waiting and in the wings who's a warmonger, and all that means is possible carnage and death for our young people and a destabilization of the world. And if he doesn't have enough scruples about him and decency to understand, to tell the truth of what's really going on in the warmongering, then Canada's in for a long, hard battle. And it's going to be our young people that pay the price. And these people it's easy to sit with your suit on in the chair, but you're not going to do anything for the kids who are going to end up going in there and losing their lives. And it's not just Canadians, it's all over the place. So I think that's another item for people to consider in the next election, to put some people in that are going to watch over, to speak up like I am today about it. Speak up. You got to speak up. And if you don't speak up, you might as well watch your country fade away. We got to have people who defend. I often say, could you imagine if our soldiers, when they went on Normandy or on the beaches, they opened the gates and they sat in the back and they just went, no, there's bullets out there. I'm not going to go out the gate on the beaches. That's not what they did. They knew that there was a long, hard fight ahead of them. Some of them might not make it through, but they went out the gate. They ran onto the beach, and they did it for a reason. They didn't cower. They didn't make excuses. They didn't want to do it, but that's the same with what we're seeing right now with the Ukraine. And I'm hoping that Canada understands that, because we haven't had to face that for even in my lifetime, right? But if we go there, like I know from the past, talking to my grandparents, the hardships that brings on, it is absolutely the axis of evil when the world war starts, because you don't know where you're going to end up, and it sure as hell doesn't look like it looked before you got into it. So sorry to ramble on, but I wanted to make that
Brian,
case.
that's a good place to end it. You hit a couple of good themes. As you know, I have to go, and there's a by-election here. But can you
Mhm.
tell the audience, how can people follow you? How can they support you? And how can they maybe volunteer if they want to get in touch with you?
Okay, so you can go obviously through the party on the website, and you can click. You want to be a volunteer. My handle on Facebook is Brian PPC Everett. Facebook took my old one down just recently, so I'm rebuilding. They didn't give me an answer, but they just did. Obviously, it's the same handle on my X and Twitter account. But you can send me an email if you want. And another thing is, and I wanted to show you this. So I've got these. So this is a Axe the Paris Accord sign. And I have this one. These ones are fairly popular. These are the Axol 338.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So, right. So if you guys, if you want one of these, you can send me an email at Brian Everaert, Sarnia, Lambton, PPC at gmail.com, and I will be in touch with you and communicate with you how you can get one of those, because I've got them up in our riding in some key spots and they're leaving them alone. So that tells me they agree with them. And but that's basically it. If you want to send me an email, Brian PPC Everaert on, and if you go by that handle on my social media, you'll get in touch with me. Don't be afraid to send me a message or send me an email. If you have some things you want to critique me on, by all means, do it. I don't mind. Everything that, all the information that I get from the public makes me a better representative. So I guess I'll end it with that. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I always like to take the opportunity to try to get some publicity, and we need to have this. So you are doing one hell of a service. You came out like guns a-blazing. As far as I'm concerned, your footprint is reaching a lot of people. So keep it up. You do a very good job, and I'm glad that you're on our team.
You're too kind, sir. We're all doing our part. Brian, I'm going to hold you over until after the live stream, but I wanted to thank you very much for coming on and for sharing your message of positivity, optimism, and just, you got a fire in your belly. So thanks for coming on.
I do. Say hi to Max for me.
Will do. Bye,
Right
everyone.
on. Bye.